Children of good parents, what did your parents do, right? How were they good parents? We lived in this small house about half a mile from Interstate 90 when I was a kid. This was back in the mid-'80s, somewhere in Ohio near the Pennsylvania border. You could hear the trucks rumbling past at night if you left your window open. This constant white noise of traffic that just became part of the background of life. I was maybe 10 years old, sitting at the kitchen table one Saturday afternoon doing absolutely nothing productive. Mom was folding laundry nearby, and I was just staring out the window, watching cars zip past on the distant freeway. I'd been thinking about it for a while, the way kids do when they fixate on random things. Mom, how far does the freeway go? I asked. She looked up from the towel she was folding. Pretty far. Why do you ask? Where would we end up if we just got on it and kept driving? Could we drive all the way across the country? Most parents would have given a simple answer. Maybe pulled out an atlas and shown their kid the interstate system, traced a finger along the routes, explained how the highways connected. My mom had a road atlas sitting right there on the bookshelf in the living room. It would have taken 30 seconds to answer my question. Instead, she set down the towel and said, "Let's find out." I looked at her confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, let's get in the car and see where it goes. Grab your jacket." 10 minutes later, we were merging onto I-90 with no destination in mind and no real plan. Mom had thrown a few snacks in a bag, grabbed that road atlas just in case, and told my dad we'd be back later. He was used to this kind of thing from her, so he just waved us off and went back to watching a baseball game on TV. We drove east, just kept going, following the signs for I-90 East. Mom had the radio on, some classic rock station playing Eagles and Fleetwood Mac. We passed through small towns and stretches of farmland. We went through toll booths where she'd toss coins into the basket. We saw trucks hauling everything imaginable: cars, lumber, livestock. I kept asking questions. Where are we now? How far have we gone? How much longer does the freeway keep going? And she'd just say, "Keep watching. We'll see." After about an hour, we crossed into Pennsylvania. I got excited seeing the "Welcome to Pennsylvania" sign, like it was some major accomplishment. We kept driving. The landscape changed gradually. More hills, more trees, fewer farms. We passed exits for towns I'd never heard of, places like Northeast and Erie. Somewhere around the 2-hour mark, I started to see something different on the horizon. "Mom, is that water?" She smiled. "Looks like it might be." We took the next exit and found ourselves in Erie, Pennsylvania, right on the shore of Lake Erie. It was late afternoon by then, and the sun was starting to get lower in the sky. We parked near the waterfront and got out, stretching our legs. The lake was massive, so big you couldn't see the other side. It looked like an ocean. "So this is where the freeway goes," I said. "Well, it goes a lot further than this," Mom replied, "but this is where we ended up today." We walked along the shore for a while, skipping rocks and watching boats in the distance. Then Mom pulled out the atlas from the car and spread it across the hood. She showed me where we'd started and traced the route we'd taken with her finger. Then she handed me the atlas. "All right, navigator, get us home." I stared at the map, trying to make sense of all the lines and numbers. I'd looked at maps before, but I'd never actually had to use one to figure out where to go. Mom stood there patiently while I studied it, occasionally pointing things out, but mostly letting me work through it. "I think we can take this route," I said, tracing a path along the lake shore that would eventually curve back toward home. "It looks like it follows the lake for a while." "Sounds good to me. You're the boss." The drive home took longer than the drive out because we took smaller highways instead of jumping right back on the interstate. We stopped at a diner somewhere along the way and got burgers and milkshakes. Mom let me keep the atlas open on my lap the whole time, checking our progress and calling out turns. We didn't get home until after dark. Dad was in the kitchen making himself a sandwich when we walked in. "How was the drive?" he asked, completely unsurprised that we'd been gone for 6 hours. "We made it to Lake Erie," I announced proudly. He nodded like this was perfectly normal. "That's pretty far. Did you see anything interesting?" I proceeded to tell him about everything we'd seen. The trucks, the toll booths, the lake, the rocks we'd skipped. He listened and asked questions like he was genuinely interested, which he probably was. My parents were like that. They took kid things seriously. That trip became one of my favorite memories. Not because we did anything particularly special or ended up somewhere amazing, but because when I asked a simple question, my mom didn't just give me a simple answer. She showed me. She let me experience it. She trusted me to help navigate home even though I was just a kid with no real map reading skills. There were other times like that throughout my childhood. When I asked how planes stayed in the air, she took me to an aviation museum, and we spent 3 hours looking at exhibits. When I wondered what it was like to work in different jobs, she arranged for me to shadow her at work and visit my uncle's construction site. When I got curious about photography, she gave me her old camera and let me burn through rolls of film experimenting. She could have just told me things. She could have explained and lectured and saved herself a lot of time and effort, but that wasn't how her mind worked. She believed in learning by doing, in satisfying curiosity through experience rather than explanation. I'm in my 40s now with kids of my own. My daughter asked me last week how bridges stay up. I felt that familiar impulse to just pull up some YouTube videos and show her the engineering principles. Then I remembered that Saturday afternoon drive with my mom. "Let's go look at some bridges," I said. "We'll figure it out together." My daughter's face lit up the same way mine probably did that day. We spent the afternoon driving around looking at different types of bridges, talking about what we noticed, making guesses about how they worked. That's the thing my mom understood that I'm still learning. Sometimes the answer matters less than the journey to find it. Sometimes "let's see" is better parenting than "here's what I know."